The quantum phase displacement drive of the Zilarian observation vessel hummed with a barely perceptible vibration as it materialized in Earth's orbit. From the outside, it was nothing more than a shimmer, a ghost of reflected starlight that would register to human instruments as nothing more than a momentary atmospheric anomaly. Commander Angsara's tentacular appendages danced across the holographic interface, each movement precise and calculated. Millennia of galactic observation had prepared her for countless first contacts, but something about this blue-green planet felt different. The electromagnetic signatures were a cacophony of chaos. Unpredictable, layered, almost alive. "Initial scan complete," announced Vrel, the junior xenosociologist, his voice a modulated blend of electronic tones and organic resonance. "Preliminary data is unusual." Angsara's secondary visual receptors focused on the rapidly scrolling data. Humanity appeared to be a species in perpetual motion, billions of individual units constantly exchanging information, resources, and energy in patterns that defied traditional sociological models. No centralized control, yet somehow maintaining a complex global system. What should have been a routine planetary assessment was quickly becoming something else entirely. The first anomaly appeared precisely 37 minutes after their arrival. A microscopic perturbation in their quantum stealth field, so small that it would have gone unnoticed by any other observation team. But the Zilarians prided themselves on precision, and this disturbance was impossible. "Locate the source," Angsara commanded. Vrel's appendages froze. The source was unexpected. A single human dwelling, a modest rectangular structure in what human geographical databases labeled as suburban Chicago. More precisely, a room approximately 3.7 meters by 4.2 meters, containing a single organic life form, a human female, approximately 16 standard cycles old. The girl sat before a primitive electronic device, what humans called a laptop computer. Her fingers moved with a rhythm that suggested something beyond mere communication. She was probing, searching, her digital movements like the tentative explorations of a young predator, testing the boundaries of its environment. "Impossible," Vrel muttered, a rare break in his professional demeanor. The human had detected a quantum fluctuation that should have been undetectable to her species' current technological capabilities. Not just detected, she was actively tracing its origin, her digital tendrils reaching out with a curiosity that was equal parts dangerous and fascinating. Angsara made a decision that would alter the course of their mission, and potentially the understanding of two civilizations. "Full historical context," she ordered. "I want to know everything about this human female." The data began to compile. Emma Rodriguez, orphaned at 9, mathematical prodigy. Rejected by traditional educational systems, self-taught through open-source learning platforms, an algorithm of human potential was beginning to take shape. Unpredictable, wild, beautiful. What the Zilarians didn't know yet was that Emma Rodriguez was about to become the first human to make unofficial first contact with an alien civilization. And she would do it from her bedroom, wearing mismatched socks, and with a half-eaten pizza slice balanced precariously on her keyboard. The observation had begun, but nothing, absolutely nothing, would proceed according to plan. Vrel's xenosociological training had prepared him for countless forms of communication, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have readied him for internet memes. What humans dismissed as trivial digital humor was, in fact, a revolutionary communication mechanism that defied every known principle of information transfer. Each meme was a complex, rapidly mutating cultural payload that carried layers of emotional, social, and contextual information far beyond its apparent simplicity. The incident began with a video of a dancing cat. More precisely, it began with a 12-second clip of an orange tabby performing an improbable series of movements synchronized to an obscure electronic music track. Within 48 hours, this single piece of digital content had traversed global networks, been translated into 73 different languages, spawned 6,000, 429 derivative works, and triggered a series of global conversations that touched on topics ranging from quantum mechanics to existential philosophy. It's not just communication, Vrel whispered to Commander Anxera, his translation matrix struggling to capture the complexity. It's a near-sentient transmission system. The Zalarian observation team had a comprehensive database of communication methods from 3,647 different galactic civilizations. None, not a single one, came close to the human method of information exchange. A single image could unite millions, destabilize political systems, launch social movements, or provide collective emotional catharsis in a matter of hours. Take the dancing cat meme. What appeared to be a simple piece of digital entertainment was, in fact, a nuanced commentary on human social dynamics. The cat's owner was a retired quantum physicist battling depression. The video was recorded during a moment of spontaneous joy, a deliberate act of emotional resistance against personal suffering. When it went viral, it became something more than entertainment. It became a global signal of hope, of resilience, of the human capacity to find humor and connection in the most unexpected moments. Vrel's analysis algorithms began to break down. Traditional sociological models predicted that such random, seemingly meaningless content should have zero long-term impact. Instead, the dancing cat meme triggered a cascade of human interactions that resulted in 3,216 new online support groups for individuals battling mental health challenges, a crowdfunding campaign that raised $2.3 million for depression research, an international conference on the intersection of humor, healing, and human connectivity. They're using chaos as a communication protocol, Anxera observed, her typically stoic demeanor showing the first hints of genuine fascination. The meme was more than content. It was a complex emotional algorithm, a distributed neural network of human experience that could instantaneously translate individual moments of joy, pain, or absurdity into a collective experience. Vrel discovered something even more extraordinary. The humans were consciously aware of this mechanism. They didn't just create memes. They understood them as a form of cultural immune system, a way to process collective trauma, to resist oppression, to maintain psychological flexibility in the face of unprecedented global challenges. A single dancing cat had just rewritten everything the Zalarians thought they knew about intelligent communication. And this was just the beginning. The pandemic struck with a silence more devastating than any weapon the Zalarians had encountered in their centuries of galactic observation. It began as a microscopic disruption, a viral entity so small that it would have been unremarkable in most planetary ecosystems. But humans were anything but remarkable in their response. Commander Anxera watched in absolute astonishment as an entire species transformed itself in real time. Their predictive models, which had successfully mapped the collapse of 2,379 different civilizations, began to fail spectacularly within the first 72 hours. The initial stages followed a pattern the Zalarians expected: panic, confusion, economic disruption. But then something unprecedented happened. Instead of fragmenting, human society began to reorganize with a fluidity that defied every known sociological principle. Research laboratories across the globe abandoned competitive practices, sharing data in real time. Corporations retooled entire production lines overnight to produce medical equipment. Artists became communication specialists. Programmers became epidemiological modelers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the same girl who had first detected the Zalarian observation vessel, now found herself at the center of a global response. Working from a makeshift home laboratory, she was coordinating a distributed research network that spanned continents. "We're not just fighting a virus," she told a global video conference. "We're redesigning how humanity works." Vrel's translation matrix captured more than just words. It captured the emotional resonance, a collective determination that transformed individual fear into collective strength. The Zalarians observed phenomena that violated every principle of their understanding. A retired car mechanic in Detroit 3D printed respiratory equipment. A group of high school students in Mumbai developed an eye-powered tracking algorithm. Musicians organized virtual concerts that raised millions for medical research. Chefs transformed restaurant kitchens into meal distribution centers. Each action was a node in a living, breathing network of human resilience. The most shocking revelation came from their most advanced predictive algorithms. By all traditional metrics, human society should have collapsed. Their economic systems were fragile, their political structures deeply divided, their resources unevenly distributed. Instead, they did the impossible. They adapted, not through top-down control, but through a decentralized, almost organic process of collective problem-solving. Every individual became a potential solution, every community an adaptive system. Commander Anxera realized they were witnessing something beyond survival. This was evolution in real time, not of biological systems, but of social intelligence. The pandemic became a global simulator of human potential. It revealed a species capable of reimagining itself moment by moment, a civilization that could transform its entire operational framework faster than most species could communicate a simple warning signal. When the crisis began to recede, humanity emerged not weakened, but fundamentally transformed. They had not just survived, they had used the greatest challenge of their generation as an opportunity to redesign everything. The Zellerians' initial mission of observation had become something else entirely. They were no longer just watching a species. They were learning from it. The Zellerian data archives contained 17,429 documented forms of artistic expression from across the known galaxy. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for human art. Vrel's research team discovered the first anomaly in a collection of war photography. The images were not mere representations of conflict, but quantum-level emotional transmissions that defied every known principle of visual communication. The photograph that broke their understanding came from a conflict zone in a region humans called Syria. Taken by a photographer named Amira Hassan, the image captured a moment that was simultaneously a documentation of destruction and a profound act of hope. A child's hand, covered in dust, reached out to place a small flower between the ruins of what had once been a home. In that single frame, Vrel's analysis algorithms detected multiple layers of emotional and philosophical complexity. A statement of resistance against total destruction. A biological imperative of hope. A philosophical rejection of despair. A communication method that transcended linguistic barriers. They're using art as an existential rebellion, Commander Anxera observed, her typically analytical voice carrying an unprecedented note of wonder. The deeper they investigated, the more complex human creativity became. Music was not just sound, but a method of processing collective trauma. A song composed by a terminally ill child in a small hospital became a global movement of compassion, raising millions for medical research and creating a network of support that spanned continents. Literature revealed itself as something far beyond narrative. Human writers were not just telling stories. They were creating entire alternative universes that challenged the very concept of reality. A science fiction novel written by an unemployed factory worker in Detroit became a blueprint for technological innovation, inspiring real-world solutions to global energy challenges. The Zellerians discovered that human creativity was a form of collective problem-solving far more sophisticated than any technological system they had ever encountered. Art was not decoration. It was survival. In a remote indigenous community in the Amazon, traditional dancers used movement to preserve archaeological knowledge that would have been lost to time. Their performances were living archives, biological data storage systems that maintained cultural memory across generations. A street artist in Mumbai transformed urban decay into a commentary on social inequality. Each mural was a complex algorithm of social critique, economic analysis, and emotional resonance. Vrel's most shocking discovery came from a collection of paintings created by individuals with neurological differences, What humans categorized as limitations were, in fact, entirely new modes of perceiving and communicating reality. An artist with synesthesia produced visual representations of mathematical concepts that made the Zilarians' most advanced computational models look primitive. They don't just create art, Vrel reported to Commander Anxera. They use creativity as a method of understanding existence itself. The Zilarian observation team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was not just a species that made art. Humanity was art, a continuously evolving, self-reflective, impossibly complex form of living creativity. And they had only begun to understand. The technological breakthrough began with a whisper, not a bang. 3 researchers from seemingly disparate worlds converged. Dr. Aisha Okik, a quantum physicist from a small research institute in Nigeria; Lu Wei, an environmental engineer from a community-funded lab in rural China; and Maria Gonzalez, a materials scientist working out of a repurposed community center in Puerto Rico. They had never met in person. Their collaboration existed entirely in the digital realm, a constellation of shared documents, late-night video calls, and open-source research platforms that the Zilarian observation team found more complex than most galactic diplomatic networks. The problem was deceptively simple: global energy sustainability. What made their approach revolutionary was not the technology itself, but the collaborative methodology. Traditional scientific approaches would have taken decades. These researchers dismantled every existing paradigm of innovation in less than 18 months. Commander Anxera watched in absolute fascination as the project unfolded. Their quantum analysis systems struggled to map the intricate web of human collaboration. This wasn't just research. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection. Lu Wei's work on carbon capture technologies merged with Okik's quantum entanglement research and Gonzalez's advances in metamaterial design. But it was more than a technical synthesis. It was a cultural alchemy that transformed individual limitations into collective potential. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity: a distributed energy generation system that could transform atmospheric carbon into clean electricity, with efficiency rates that made the Zilarians' most advanced energy technologies look like primitive combustion. But the real marvel was how they developed it. The research was entirely open source. Every step, every failure, every incremental success was documented and shared in real time. Thousands of researchers, students, and citizen scientists contributed. A retired electrical engineer in Brazil solved a critical cooling problem. A high school student in India developed an algorithm that increased energy conversion efficiency by 22.7%. This was not just technological development. This was a planetary immune response. Vrel's analysis revealed something extraordinary. The researchers weren't just solving an energy crisis. They were redesigning the fundamental relationship between human civilization and its environment. Each solution was a node in a larger, more complex system of planetary thinking. The Zilarian observation team realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was developing technology not as a tool of domination, but as a method of planetary healing. When the first prototype was unveiled, it wasn't in a corporate boardroom or a government laboratory. It was launched through a global live stream, with the 3 primary researchers sitting in their home offices, surrounded by family, community members, and supporters from around the world. Dr. Okik spoke words that would be translated into 214 languages. "This is not our technology. This belongs to everyone." Commander Anxera understood then that they were observing more than a technological breakthrough. They were watching a species redefine the very concept of innovation, not as an individual achievement, but as a collective act of planetary survival. Humanity was writing a new chapter in the definition of intelligence. The threat arrived without fanfare, a cascading systems failure that would have spelled certain extinction for any other known civilization in the galaxy. Deep within Earth's geomagnetic core, an unprecedented instability began to develop. Most species would have detected this only moments before total planetary collapse. Humanity discovered it decades in advance and began preparing in a way that defied every principle of survival the Zilarians had ever documented. Commander Anxera faced the most profound moral dilemma in the history of the Galactic Observation Corps. Their mission parameters were crystal clear: observe, never interfere. But the data unfolding before them presented an impossible choice. Humanity knew about the impending catastrophe. But instead of panic or denial, they responded with a level of coordinated complexity that was nothing short of miraculous. The first signs came from unexpected places. Indigenous knowledge keepers in the Amazon correlated ancient geological records with cutting-edge scientific data. Climate researchers in Antarctica cross-referenced satellite imagery with millennia-old ice core samples. A global network of citizen scientists, from school children to retired engineers, began collecting and analyzing data with a precision that rivaled the most advanced scientific institutions. Vrel's analysis revealed a stunning truth. Humanity was preparing for a planetary-scale challenge not through centralized control, but through a distributed, almost organic system of collective problem-solving. The geomagnetic instability threatened to collapse Earth's protective magnetic field. This would expose the planet to devastating solar radiation, effectively sterilizing most of its biosphere. Any other species would have either descended into chaos or simply given up. Humans did something else entirely. They began a multi-generational project of planetary resilience. Educational systems were rapidly transformed to focus on geological and electromagnetic sciences. Every major technological innovation became a potential solution to the impending crisis. The Zilarian observation team watched in absolute astonishment as humanity began to redesign itself as a species. Genetic researchers developed radiation-resistant crop varieties. Engineers designed underground ecosystems. Architects reimagined human habitation to protect against extreme environmental conditions. Artists created cultural narratives that maintained hope and collective purpose. Commander Anxera's internal ethical algorithms began to break down. The Galactic Observation Corps had strict non-intervention protocols. But what they were witnessing was more than a potential planetary extinction. It was a species-level transformation that defied every known principle of survival. The critical moment came during a global conference that was part scientific symposium, part collective meditation. Representatives from every discipline, scientists, artists, indigenous leaders, children, elders, came together not to debate, but to collectively imagine a solution. Vrel recorded something unprecedented, a form of collective problem-solving that was less about individual brilliance and more about a planetary consciousness emerging. Commander Anxera made a decision that would change everything. They would intervene. Not to save humanity, but to understand it. The observation had become something else entirely, a dialogue between two forms of intelligence, two ways of understanding existence itself. Humanity was about to receive its first official communication from beyond the stars. But nothing, absolutely nothing, would proceed as expected. First contact was not what anyone expected. It began with a live stream that crashed every digital infrastructure on the planet, not through technological aggression, but through sheer collective curiosity that overwhelmed every network, every satellite, every communication system. Commander Anxera appeared, not in a military installation, not in a government facility, but on a platform typically used by young humans to share moments of their lives. Twitch stream, they called it, a space of raw, unfiltered human experience. Behind Anxera stood the entire Zilarian observation team. Vrel, positioned slightly to the left, his quantum adaptive translator humming with anticipation. The background was deliberately simple, a stark representation of the vast complexity about to unfold. "We have been watching," Anxera began, the translation matrix capturing not just words, but the emotional resonance beneath them. "And we have been transformed." The global audience was a tapestry of human diversity, a teenager in Buenos Aires watching on a shared smartphone, an elder in a remote Mongolian village, a research team in an Antarctic station, refugees in a temporary shelter, students in a rural classroom. Each viewer was both individual and part of a collective consciousness. What followed was not a declaration of conquest or scientific superiority. It was a vulnerability so profound it rewrote the understanding of interstellar communication. The Zellerians shared their observations, not as a report, but as a story. They revealed how humanity had been observed, not as specimens, but as a form of intelligence that defied every known galactic classification. They showed moments humans had forgotten: a firefighter carrying a child from a burning building, a musician playing in a war zone, scientists sharing research during a global pandemic, artists transforming trauma into hope, children solving problems adults considered impossible. The transmission was a mirror, humanity seeing itself through alien eyes for the first time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the sane researcher who had first detected the Zellerian vessel years ago, was chosen to respond, not by any government, but by a global consensus that emerged through millions of simultaneous conversations. Her response was elegantly simple: "We are not perfect. We are possibility." The Zellerian intervention was unprecedented. They weren't offering technology. They weren't seeking resources. They were offering understanding, a galactic recognition of humanity's potential. The diplomatic protocol was something entirely new. The Zellerians proposed a collaborative research initiative, not a transfer of knowledge, but a mutual exploration of intelligence itself. Every human discipline would be involved, from quantum physics to indigenous knowledge systems, from art to environmental science. Vrel's most remarkable discovery was how humans processed this moment. There was no single reaction. Some were terrified. Some were ecstatic. Some were skeptical. Some were already planning collaborative research. The diversity of response was, in itself, a demonstration of human intelligence. When the live stream ended, the world was fundamentally changed, not by alien technology, but by a shared moment of collective reflection. Humanity had been seen, truly seen, and in that seeing, something fundamental had shifted. The observation was complete. The real conversation was just beginning. The final report to the Galactic Council was unlike any document in recorded interstellar history. Commander Anxera stood before the most ancient governing body in the known universe, a crystalline chamber that had judged the fate of countless civilizations over millennia. The chamber's walls were living archives, each surface a repository of galactic knowledge, accumulated across billions of years. Traditionally, such a report would be a clinical dissection of a species, biological capabilities, technological potential, resource distribution, threat assessment. This report was something else entirely. Humanity is not a civilization to be categorized. Anxera began, her voice resonating with an emotion that was almost unprecedented in the Council's history. Humanity is a process of continuous becoming. The holographic display came alive with moments that defied traditional scientific classification. A child's drawing that solved a complex mathematical problem. A song that had united generations of conflict. A piece of urban art that transformed an entire community's understanding of itself. Vrel, standing beside Anxera, had spent months distilling their observations into something the Council could comprehend. But some experiences resisted traditional translation. How do you explain a species that turns its greatest challenges into its most profound moments of growth? How do you describe a civilization that sees limitations as invitations to reimagine existence? The report was a radical document. It wasn't just an assessment. It was a manifesto of potential. The Zellerians recommended something unprecedented, not conquest, not observation, but engagement. They proposed humanity be recognized not as a developing species, but as a unique form of intelligence, the living algorithm of possibility that could not be understood through traditional metrics. The Council members, beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of thousands of civilizations, listened in stunned silence. Anxera revealed the most shocking discovery. Humanity's true strength was not in its technology, not in its biological capabilities, but in its capacity for collective imagination. They didn't just solve problems, they reimagined the very nature of problem-solving. The geomagnetic crisis they had anticipated. Humanity was already developing multi-generational solutions that transformed a potential extinction event into an opportunity for planetary redesign. The pandemic that should have destroyed them. They had used it to rebuild social systems, to create new forms of global cooperation. The technological challenges that would have defeated other species, they turned them into collaborative global projects that redefined innovation itself. "We are not recommending first contact," Ank'Sera said. "We are recommending first conversation." The final recommendation was radical. The Galactic Council should not approach humanity as a species to be studied, but as a potential partner in understanding the nature of intelligence itself. Vrel presented the final piece of evidence, a compilation of human responses to their initial contact, not just from leaders or scientists, but from artists, children, workers, dreamers. Each perspective was a unique lens into a collective consciousness. When the presentation concluded, something unprecedented happened. The ancient council was silent, not in judgment, but in wonder. Humanity had done more than survive. They had redefined the very concept of survival. The observation was complete. The real journey was just beginning.